Welcome to Canceling COVID. I'm going to get that transition right just yet. I'm Tanya Rivens. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't let my husband know that I'm cutting it off abruptly. Just having a time trying to get this transition with the music. But it's so good to see you. We're back live in the studio. A couple events that have come up the past 2 weeks, but we got a great conversation today. I'm really excited about the information that we're able to share. I want to also, speaking of sharing, say thank you. She's been with me and still riding with me. Groundwater Solutions, groundwater-solutions.org, groundwater-solutions.org, 704-596-0505, 704-596-0505. Hey, hit someone up and let them know we're on air right now, Canceling COVID, now in its second year, continuing to bring you the information that's very much needed in our community. I want to start by bringing on Dr. Tracia Black. I just mentioned she's a part of Groundwater Solutions, and she's back from vacation. Woohoo! How you doing?
I'm wonderful. Thank
Oh,
you.
nice,
Very
nice,
rested.
nice. You look like it, and oh man, I'm not gonna say I envy you because I've been doing some traveling, and it's been great to take a break. And even though it was work, I was able to mix in pleasure with that as well. But I'm glad. I know how hard you work, and
Thank
so
you.
it's great to see.
It's part of our self-care, our
Yeah,
mental
yeah.
wellness, that we take care of ourselves and that we learn to take breaks, say no, and do many of the things that most of us don't do.
And there you are, just leading into our segue. And you're absolutely right. And I've actually gotten better of just saying, you know what? I'm just shutting it down or I'm stepping away because you're trying to do this and do that. And I'm trying to do more of a, I guess, let's say compartmentalize is the way that you say it,
Mhm,
where,
mhm,
I'm going to do this here this day. Because when
mhm.
I tell people all the different things I'm involved in, they're like, oh, how do you keep it straight? And so you
Yeah.
start trying to designate. But you are the expert when it comes to mental health. I'm excited
Mhm,
about talking about this, Dr. Black, because I know your passion for this. And I
mhm,
came across where we now have an ordained African American minister that has been appointed as the president of the American Psychological Association. And
Wow.
she's not
I did
the
not.
first African American. Actually, the outgoing is a male African American, but she's an ordained minister. And I think that's great strategy in trying to bring the church in and get more involved. But a couple of things that I want to highlight before I let you kind of start touching on this. We know that COVID has had an humongous impact. It's another pandemic level for us when it comes to mental health. It
Mhm,
looks like a big part of it is though is having experts that look like us. You're
mhm,
one of not very many. It says fewer than 1 in 5 psychologists are people of color, and fewer than 1 in 30 are Black.
mhm.
1 in 30 is Black. And that right there alone should be sobering. So when we're out here dealing with mental health, we've got the challenge of trying to find someone who have the same life experiences that can
Mhm,
relate and
mhm.
that can really give us feedback. And you've touched on this before, so I'll let you go because I know this is your field.
Yeah. So I think that that's so many layers of things that I want to respond to. I remember when I first started out as a therapist, and
Uh-huh.
part of once you get your degree, you have to get your license, and then you have to be impaneled with the different insurance companies so that they will accept you as one of their clinicians. And so I would, call Blue Cross Blue Shield, or I'd call Aetna or Cigna, and they would say, well, our network is closed. We're not accepting applications for new
Mm,
providers. And I always ask, I said, then give me a list of your clinicians who are people of color, so that when people call me and I say, you're not going to let me in your network, that I have someone to refer them to. And it was an automatic response, Tanya. Uh, we'll let you in our network, because they could not
wow.
produce a list of people of color on their network. And so I tell the younger clinicians or folks who are just getting in the field, because
Uh-huh.
I know 50 and 60-year-olds who are going back to school to become counselors and social workers and therapists, which I highly encourage. I tell them to call those insurance companies and say the same thing, because there are not people who look like us who are available in the systems, and people need that.
Well,
Counseling and therapy is about relationship. It's in the process of having a healthy therapeutic relationship. There's a theory called person-centeredness by Carl Rogers, who said people change and heal in relationship. And so in relationship, you got to have people who look like you, not
mhm.
necessarily look like you, but who have shared experiences with you. In our culture, because in America especially, race is such a prevalent part of who we are. That's a
Right.
huge part of how we relate to others.
So, Dr. Black, I see more and more people. Interesting, you said that going back to school and getting certified, and more starting their own practices.
Mhm.
There's a lot of funding out there for that. Is that true or not so much?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean,
Okay.
if you decide to go back to school, there is funding for that. You are eligible for a lot of the government supplements, and there are lots of scholarships and things like that. There is funding available if you want to go to school, but you have to look for it. Nobody's going to come and walk up to you. Just like anything, it requires some work on our part. So there is no reason for you to let finances keep you from going back to further your education. So I encourage folks, within my organization, I'd say 30% of people are pursuing a degree. They come in because we hire at any level. They'll come in with a high school diploma, but they're seeing people who are all about learning and all about growing. So they're going back for their bachelor's degree, or they're coming in with their bachelor's, and they see folks who are pursuing their master's, and they're doing that. The master's level, they're pursuing doctorate. So we are encouraging education. So whether it's in the church, I'm excited about hearing about the minister who is now leading the psychological association. That's
Yeah.
amazing. So in wherever you are, encourage at whatever age that you can do whatever you were called to do. So
And let me just correct myself too. It's three black women have led it before.
mhm,
Replace him right now is a male, black male. But the interesting part is even they realize that this is a growing need in our community. And first of all, I have to applaud our ministries because there is more acceptance now. And COVID was a big part of that. Can you
mhm.
speak to how it was not prior to COVID, but now how ministries have started to embrace and say, hey, we got to deal with this?
Well, I do see that. I see that, prior to COVID, I think the whole belief in the
Pray and it'll be
faithful.
all right.
Yeah, pray. God is your healer. You don't need to go and tell all these people your private business because
Mhm.
you just aren't praying hard enough, or you're not saved enough. And I think that there's a book out. It's called the There's a Broken Heart in Every Pew, and
Mm.
it really, I think, began to have some dialogue even before COVID, that mental health issues, emotional and behavioral issues are in your church, and that if you're being responsible as a ministry, that you need to address the hurt in the past. I mean, there's so much trauma, there's so much family division, there's grief and loss, and life happens in a church, and mental health issues are part of life. So I think ministries are now beginning to really own that, and I think because you have so many pastors who saw their congregation struggling during COVID-19. They saw the sadness, they saw the grief, and they experienced it for themselves. I don't know if you've heard, but there in recent days there have been pastors who've committed suicide. So they've experienced it personally, they've seen it in their family with their loved ones, and they've seen it in their ministry. So we just can't ignore it anymore. And I'm proud of us for finally getting to that point where it becomes a natural part of our conversation. I don't think we're there yet where it's natural, but I think we're more intentional.
And talking about being intentional, speaking of the pastors, that's an issue as well as our young people. There were several, I was just reading about several high profile college
Mhm,
athletes who have taken their lives. And one was a lacrosse player, I believe. Another one was cross country. And now there's an African American female cheerleader at one of the HBCUs in Florida who she
mhm,
took her life. She posted on Facebook, on social media. I don't know which one it was, and it caused a lockdown at the school because people did, they read it and they were alarmed, but it was just too late by the time they got to her. And it's heartbreaking. It's just heartbreaking that we keep seeing this happening over and over. And for those that are don't want to talk about it, we've got to talk about it because we're not even scratching the surface right
we're
now.
not scratching the surface, and we are in a huge crisis. Suicide has quickly become the leading cause of death for young folks and middle-aged folks over any other disease, and we're seeing it. Every week. You can't go a week without hearing that someone has taken their own life. And what I can tell you, it is one of the most devastating losses for the folks who are left behind. Because
Yeah.
we lose folks to disease, but we're blindsided many times by folks who take their own lives, and you for years later there is no resolution and no peace for the folks who are left behind.
But Dr. Black, what I'm reading in these notes that they're leaving behind, they feel like they're at peace. Now, this cheerleader, because I wanted to read a little more, and she had torn her ACL. And so
Mhm.
that kind of put her in a depressive state. And then COVID. I've seen some stories. 60 Minutes, just one of my favorites, just did a story, and they were talking, and I'll share more about that. But, so I made an F for the first time in my life. So you're not able to deal with failing the class. I mean, that speaks to, okay, everything's not going to be perfect. So how do we coach you back? But I understand when you have an injury that you think is going to be a life changer, where you'll never be able to do what you love again. And she cited in her note, it was COVID. She wishes that her grandfather was still here, who she could talk to and would explain it. But I'm going to join you now. They
Yeah.
seem like they're really at peace with these decisions. What do you say?
Well, I'm saying that the folks who are left behind, when
Right.
if you have a loved one, someone that you really care about, and they take their own life, it's very difficult for those folks who are surviving the loss of their loved one to find peace. I should have
Absolutely.
done something. What part of this was my fault? There are all these lingering questions. I think for the person who actually makes that decision to take their own life, they are at a sense of peace because they are tired of hurting. They're tired. And most people don't want to die. People who are suicidal don't necessarily want to die. They just don't want to hurt anymore. And then
Oh,
death becomes the only way that they see that they can stop hurting. And so
oh.
they're at peace because they don't, they've taken that, they have made a decision to stop hurting. You know,
So
and,
this
and, and
No,
one
you
of
go ahead. This is good stuff.
the, and I talked about folks being blindsided. The
Yeah.
reality is that most folks who are debating or in that place of turmoil, they are letting people know that they're hurting.
There
And
are
it's
signs.
Yeah, there are signs, and we have to pay attention to them. We have to do a lot of education and awareness so that the everybody knows what those signs are, and then what to do about them. Because you may know someone is really in a bad place. We ask every day, "How are you doing?" And they say, "Fine," and we go on about our business. But
Mhm.
we have to say, "I don't think you're fine," and we have to actually ask, "Are you
Right.
thinking of hurting yourself? Are you considering suicide?" And what I have found, and I have to teach clinicians to do this too, because this is one of the scariest areas that as a therapist that we have to go into with a client. You have to ask directly. And those who are not will say, "No, oh no, no, I'm not there, but I am hurting."
Yeah.
And that frees us to know, okay, we're still going to keep working on this. But those who are, they will absolutely tell you that they are. "I have thought about it." And then
Wow.
we have a door open where we can do some really good work that saves lives. And many of them are relieved that somebody finally asked.
Right, right.
It's been in their head. They've tried to put out feelers for people, and nobody asked.
Well, I know the suicide hotline is valuable, but Groundwater Solutions, you can get a really personal touch right here in our community. Groundwater-solutions.org, 704-596-0505. I will share the story this past week on 60 Minutes. I believe it was this past week, where a doctor's office, when people come in, she automatically, no matter what the youth come in for, she does the mental health wellness check as well. And she
Mhm.
asked those questions, and she talked about the number of children she was able to head off a potential suicide just because she took the time, even though that's not what they were there for. She still engaged in that conversation. And I
And
honestly,
I
across the
think
board,
I think we have to do that. I think we
right.
have to do that, whether it's the dentist, whether it's the doctor's office, whether it's the
Uh-huh.
church, that we need to have some type of screening or assessment for people's mental health and their mental wellness. That this is
Right.
what's going to save lives, where they don't necessarily have to come into a therapist's office. They can go wherever they are with helping folks who love and help.
Mhm.
That becomes a natural part of what we do. It needs to be organic in the services that we deliver.
Well, Dr. Tricia Black, Groundwater Solutions, is always a joy, a thrill to have you with us. I appreciate you back and rested and ready to go as always. As we wrap things up, is there anything else you would like to share?
So, here at Genesis Project and Groundwater, we are doing voter registration with community members for the
Good.
next several weeks. And we're trying to
Fantastic.
really push for the primaries that are happening next week. So if you
May
have not
17th.
gotten out to early voting, make sure you do that before Saturday, which is the last day to early vote. And then if you miss early voting, you can vote on Tuesday, the May 17th. If you are registered, you can do that. So if you want to come out and join us, we're going up and down the Sugar Creek corridor this week, offering rides for early voting registration. And then we'll be doing that on Tuesday, the 17th as well. And we love participation.
Thank you, Dr. Black. And as always, always involved groundwater on the ground floor, working in our community. And I appreciate the grassroots effort. And you're right. It's voting season right now. We're inside of a primary elections, and our local elections are pretty much more important than national because these decisions are right here in our backyard. So thank
And
you
they
so much,
impact how
Dr.
we live here in Charlotte, Mecklenburg,
Mecklenburg County.
North Carolina.
Amen.
Mhm.
Yes, amen. So thank you so much,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Tricia Black, for taking the time. Enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of your week.
Thank
And
you so
along those lines, absolutely. If you have any questions, 704-336-2133 is the Mecklenburg County Board of Education. 704-336-2133. So you guys are probably aware that I do work with Atrium Health, and I'm working really hard to keep information up and running about what they have in the community that they're offering to keep you reminded about getting vaccinated. So let me see if I can get this on real quick. Looks like it's not popping up, so we're gonna move on. I had an opportunity. I said today we're talking mental health, and one of the things about mental health is there's an individual that is here in our community that is working really hard to educate others and to keep them informed as well about mental health. And she's been working really hard. We had this conversation earlier this morning. I'm going to bring her on as we continue to talk about the importance of mental health and how we as a community really need to step up and acknowledge this as just a natural part of our everyday lives. Empowered, making you aware of what's happening in our community. We're still in the pandemic, folks, and it's great to help to get to share the information so that you are informed. This is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I couldn't think of anyone better to have a conversation with. You see her beautiful smile already, always available. I have to say that. She's a community advocate, she's a trauma expert, and now an author. And congratulations for all that you are doing in the community. I'm talking about Carla Carlisle. So good morning and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me, Tanya.
Absolutely, Carla. Let's talk about Mental Health Awareness Month and kind of lay the foundation for the work that you've been involved in to date.
Absolutely. I have been involved now for over a decade with mental health and mental health awareness, based on, things that happened in my own family, just really opened my eyes to the importance of mental health in the community, in the Black community, in all of our homes. And I just wanted to help move the dial forward in terms of reducing or even eliminating stigma around mental health. When we think about it, if someone has a cancer diagnosis, if they, break a leg, we're signing casts, we're bringing food, we're doing anything we can to support. But when it comes to mental health and a mental health diagnosis, then people get very quiet and it's uncomfortable. And so because of my family's challenges facing mental health, I just recognize that, it's really important to normalize it. So I started off with my first book, which was called Journey to the Sun, and it just chronicles my path to parenthood, but also all of the trauma that children, young adults, and we as adults can face. Um, and how that impacts our mental health. From there, my son and I collaborated on our book, which was just released, called My Big Notebook. And the reason we did this book was to really help elementary school age kids begin to develop their own little mental health toolkit. So this is like the
Okay, so
start.
hold on. You
Okay,
can jump
sure,
ahead
sure,
already.
sure,
You
sure,
go ahead. I
sure.
didn't even you stole my thunder. I didn't even get to
I'm
talk about the
sorry.
book. That's okay. That's okay. Because one of the things that you're passionate about this, and that's what I appreciate. So we're gonna
Yeah.
get to the book in just a moment. And I love the way
Okay.
you worked with your son. But I want to talk about how you are available for people. I had a crisis, pick up the phone, call Carla. You're right there. And you should be applauded for that because people need to know there are people in our community that will listen, that do care, and will answer your calls if you have any questions. And you've always answered my calls, especially around mental health. So salute to you again for trying to normalize this conversation about mental health, which is one of the things we've committed to as well. And even on my radio show, I've gotten away from it, but talking about mental health every week so that this can be a part of our weekly conversations. Before we get to the big reveal, what let's talk about what have you experienced any pushback in the community because you've been doing this for a while from our community?
Hmm. So it's more like a lack of understanding rather
Okay.
than pushback, I would say. I grew up in a time where it was like, hey, you just suck it up, just
Pray about it.
to the side, pray about it. And I am a believer. I am a Christian. I
Mhm,
believe
mhm.
in prayer, but I believe in prayer with works.
That's right.
So that works as well as seeking wise counsel. And so I don't hesitate. Just like you said, you picked up the phone to call me. I connect with the experts who can provide the appropriate support. So I consider myself almost like a gatekeeper
Yeah.
to help people. And typically, we don't think that much about mental health until there is a crisis.
Amen.
And once there's a crisis, then we have to go, go, go. So the idea of normalizing the importance of mental health, we get a physical every year. We can check in with a therapist at least once a year, just see how we're doing, maybe monthly, that kind of thing. So, and the other thing that I'm really happy about is how much the Black church is beginning to embrace the concept of mental health.
Yes,
And
they are.
yes, I've done some events with some churches engaged and at different churches, and I'm just finding that it shouldn't have to be an either or.
Right.
When you say, "Oh, I just pray about it," but God wants us to take action. That's why we have free will. It's about being mindful in our actions.
And Carla,
And
you're real good too. Like you were a resource for me to refer to someone, but you also followed up. And so I appreciate that. Now, let's talk about the book, the big notebook. You and your son. This is book number 2 for you, correct? So tell us
correct.
how was this birth?
So we basically, I was talking to JC, my son, about he always wants to help people. He always wants to help other people. And I'm thinking, you're turning into a little me, and you can stretch yourself so thin that you're no longer effective.
Mhm.
So let me help my son with healthy ways of helping others. And so it started off me thinking about, the kids who may need a little extra support. And then with the pandemic, with everything that's happened with COVID, it's like, hold on, our kids have been home for 2 years.
Mhm.
All of our kids, especially at the early ages, like elementary school, can
Right.
use some additional support. So we took 10 years of experience working with therapists and psychiatrists and put together some really basic coping skills, some basic concepts like the cognitive triangle, which is about thoughts, feelings, and actions, but put it in kids' terms so that our kids can have a place. And if you notice, the notebook looks like a composition notebook.
It does.
Right.
It
So it
does.
can be as discreet as the child wants it to be. It has stories, it has coloring pages and journaling pages. And the idea was to have one place for the child to go that belongs to them, and they can use it with an adult on their own or with their friends. I just wanted to give them a little support, like a buddy in a book, and that's what we call it. The idea was to provide some level of support that meets the child where he or she may be.
So Carla, was this your idea or your son's idea or a mutual effort? And was it
It
tough
was a
getting him
mutual
involved?
effort.
A mutual
I
effort?
admit, So I initially envisioned 3 books, like a series.
Okay.
And as we talked through it, and I was talking with JC and therapists and things like that, it's like, let's just deal with the fundamentals first and let's get to that. So I will tell you that JC's hands are all over this book. He told me, Mom, this part, this is enough. Here, like, we have a page with all about emotions and
Mhm.
feelings, and he talks about, and these are JC's words: mad is easier than sad. And
Mhm.
so he talks about, like, how do I get from this face with this feeling? Because a lot of times, we may try to have that stone face, but our feelings
Mhm.
show on our face, right?
And
How do
JC
I
is 10 years old, correct?
He's now 12, but he
12,
was
okay.
he was 11 when we started this. How do I get from this angry face or sad face to a happier face, or where he's feeling very loved? And so he
Mm.
he named all the faces in the book. He told me, Mom, we got to pull back on this section. We need to expand here. Like, what is your happy place? Again, just, we want this to be an all-inclusive one stop for kids to be able to express their feelings in a healthy way, and to be able to share it with an adult in their life if that's appropriate, or with their peers. It's kind of like what works best for the child.
And it's impressive that an 11-year-old is that much in touch or wants to be in touch
Yes.
with his feelings and emotions. How did you
Yes.
guys get to that point?
Oh, lots of therapy, lots of working together. It's really so amazing now, Tanya, that he will say, like, in the morning, sometimes mornings are rough, for
Mhm.
our family at least. Mornings can be rough. We're rushing
Mhm.
to get, no matter how early we get up, it can be tough. And
Yeah.
every now and then he'll come to me and say, Mom, take my hand and
Oh,
let's deep breathe together. And so I
really?
know he gets it. He
Oh,
embraces these, he embraces the concepts, and he understands them. No, he doesn't use them all the time,
right,
but
right.
certainly 75% easy. He's really in tune with his feelings. And so
Well,
think,
Carla,
yes,
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I can't let you've got to especially be proud and pat yourself on the back as well to even get to that point because, obviously he's embraced it. You've done an amazing job of you all coming together and addressing anxiety or whatever the issue would be that would come up so that you're where you are now.
yes. I mean, I'm so proud of him and the progress he's made and the relationship that we have. I love how much he wants to help and support other people.
Hmm.
And I just think he's an awesome kid. I
Yes, he
really
is.
do. And I see great things in his future. And I'm so very thankful to be his mom. It was not an easy path to get to becoming his mom through
Hmm.
foster care and adoption, but I wouldn't change one thing.
And thank you for even sharing that the personal point of privilege and but personally helping our youth that are in foster care. And I believe this month or last month was foster care month as well.
This
So
month.
you're
Yes.
checking out this month, checking off all the boxes because I work
Yes.
with Congregation for Kids. So tell us about the book again and how people can get in touch.
Sure. So, My Big Notebook, it's an interactive children's notebook. It has stories from JC's life. It has journaling and coloring pages. It covers basic concepts like the cognitive triangle: thoughts,
Mhm.
feelings, and actions. And what's the relationship across the three? And how do we get in touch with and learn how to feel and express our feelings in a positive way? It has helpful hints in here for the adult in the child's life. It has some recommended reading and videos from JC to the kids. It just has a little bit of everything in it. The book is available on Amazon. It's called My Big Notebook. And if you just put that in and my name, Carla A. Carlisle, you will find it. You can also go to my website and you'll actually see a video from JC talking about how to use the book, and he shares a little bit more about how awesome he is, but it's just a hoot. And
Yeah.
so my website is carlaacarlisle.com. And if you just click on My Big Notebook, it will take you there. You can also go that path to get the book and to stay in touch with me as well.
Well, and as we wrap things up, is there anything you would like to leave with everyone as we close out?
I just like to reiterate my statement that mental health is health, and there is absolutely nothing to be ashamed about if you're feeling like you could use a little help, because we all need help sometime.
Yes, we do.
So make your mental health a priority, just like we're told to make our physical health. And I think that we will be able to move forward as a people if we make that a priority. Takes us one step closer to feeling more whole. And that's ultimately the goal. And the better we feel, the better we treat other people, right? The better we do in our lives. And so that's what it's all about at the end of the day for me.
Miss Carla A. Carlisle, a mom, an author, a community advocate, as well as a trauma expert. We are so grateful. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you as well. Thank you. Thank you. And as we start to wrap things up, I told you we had an action packed program for you today. Just a reminder, I mentioned Atrium Health. They are doing some focus groups and they are interested. It's called Because You Matter, and things have kind of jumbled up here. But the focus groups are called Because You Matter. If you would email because you matter at atriumhealth.org, because you matter at atriumhealth.org, or call 833-666-0146, 833-666-0146. They've got a session on May 11th at 10 a.m. And I believe they give you some type of honorarium gift card for just getting your feedback on everything that's happening around COVID and vaccinations. It's just a great opportunity to give your input and let them know here in our community you are involved and you're interested. And hats off to Atrium Health for this effort as well. It's time for me to sign off, folks. If you have any questions, suggestions, email me, rivenstanya@gmail.com. rivenstanya@gmail.com. As always, life's challenges make you better, not bitter. I'm Tanya Rivens. You can join me on this Saturday, 10 a.m. Sounds of Inspiration on Praise 100.9 FM. That's 100.9 FM. Have a great day, everyone. Be well, be alert, be safe. Check on your neighbor, and most importantly, share. Let people know we're still hosting Canceling COVID every weekday, as we want to keep you informed and keep you inspired. So enjoy your day, everyone. The weather has gotten really nice. Thank you again for hopping on, and thanks for tuning in to Canceling COVID.